Hey Footy fans, welcome back to PommyInOz, your one-stop shop for all things AFL, delivered by me, your host PommyInOz. I hope we're all doing really well. The 2025 season for the Blues kicked off. Absolute belter, wasn't it? Showcasing the unpredictability of football and probably stupidity at times. The Richmond Tigers off pulling an absolute upset versus the Blues. 13 goals, 4 for 82. Just 9 goals, 15-69 at the MCG. In what was a very disappointing performance for the Blues, but what was a very positive performance for a resurgent and young, hungry, up-and-coming Tigers side. Let's run that intro and get into it. So the Blues came out all guns blazing, as you would expect. They dominated the first half. They were very strong. They looked very up for it. They showcased that short, sharp ball movement we saw in the preseason versus GWS. And there was elements of that speed and power that Michael Voss did demand in the pre-game. Their ball movement was crisp, and they seemed to have the Tigers on the ropes. The Tigers really did, though, keep going quite bold and ambitious in their ball movement. But we're getting picked off by Carlton time and time again. But then the second quarter happened. Richmond started to just structure up a little bit. They made it incredibly hard for Carlton. It was almost like the St Kilda practice game for the Blues, in which Richmond just did the basics incredibly well. They took the short kicks away. They made Carlton start to rely on their precision. And it's no surprise that the 14 worst users of the football were Carlton players in this game. And that was showcased and exposed by Richmond. They did the simple things well, and we have to refer to Nathan Broad pre-game saying that basics like pressure and intensity are not just the cornerstone of Richmond's fabric, but anyone can do it, first-year players or 10-year players. And they did that, and they clawed their way back into this game, showcasing more hunger, more control, and surprisingly, more execution and game management than the Blues. They kicked 11 of the next 12 goals, and they snatched victory from the jaws of defeat in what was really a quite impressive surge. The key moments of this game, Carlton's early dominance saw them pile on the pressure and the goals, leading by 40 plus. And Carlton really did probably think at that stage, okay, this is it. It just shows, though, how quickly Carlton can go from looking like the schoolboy bully to that schoolboy bully walking into a biker's club. In the real world, you don't have the yardmaster duty teacher stopping you getting hurt. In the bar, you do, and that's what happened to Carlton. The schoolboy bully quickly got a lesson in basics and execution. Vossi said himself in the end of the game that it was these execution fundamentals, and that is quite alarming for me. A 4-year coach in a group that's the 6th oldest in the league, harping on about basics and execution, where Adam Uze's got kind of a hall pass with a very young, inexperienced side, and they did it, and they managed to bounce back. They were beaten up in the first and came back, and that leads me on to Richmond's resilience. Despite the deficit, they never really panicked. And you saw the Blues, they were chaotic as soon as that pressure came. It was almost like this was their first game. Mitch McGovern, Nick Haynes, incredibly guilty most of the game of panicking under pressure. We saw this happen even with our experienced stars. Jacob Wheatering overcooking a handball to Sam Doherty late in the game, gifting Richmond a goal. Nick Haynes not making sure of the ball going over the line and fumbling it, allowing it to come in for Seth Campbell to triple backflip. The resilience of Richmond shouldn't be understated. As deplorable as Carlton are, Richmond had to win it, and they shifted the momentum in their favour. They wrestled it, and the Tiger Cubs maybe wagged their tails a little bit. As I said in the the Richmond Footy podcast I was on, you ask Carlton the question, invariably they don't have the answers. And debutant Delight would be a story. Sam Layla, he looked pretty good. Luke Traynor really dominated compared to Mitch McGovern playing an identical role. His performance in Sam's case was instrumental in the comeback. He was lively. He took his snake goal well. It was a little snaky type move, just being out the back at the right place, out the right time. And Traynor looked a constant intercept threat and already has added things to his bows, looking to engage contact. Tim Taranto, if we look at individual player performances. I said that he needs to start dominating the game, start controlling the game, and I thought he did incredibly well. Toby Nankervis, although I felt like at times around the ground and as showcased by momentum, massive meters gained from TDK, I thought he held his own. His 2 goals were impeccable. He was a constant pain in Carlton's side, and he was very good. He really did showcase his leadership. And Nick Vlastin was just incredibly composed, I thought, under a lot of duress. I thought he really was a staple down the back and calmed them down. But it was their young kids that really impressed me, that they never panicked as well. They had players like Cam McIntosh who, although Cripps found a lot of the ball, I don't think his impact was felt, hence a 20-point loss. I think he kept Cripps into areas that wouldn't hurt Richmond, and he was tireless, and so was Jack Ross. Jack Ross and Camden McIntosh, I felt, let Carlton's midfielder have balls where they weren't going to hurt them. And ultimately, that really did pay the price. For Carlton, Cripps did what Cripps did, and Cripps can only do so much. He isn't the type of player that he's going to be able to negate 17 other players not quite finding their level at the right time. And it was quite sad to see at times because Cripps was winning the tough ball, but he had no one to offload it to. There was no one there, and it's going to be one of them games where on the stat sheet it looks good, but on an impact per touch, it wasn't quite there for him. Jacob Weering, the fact that we're talking about he was outstanding in defence against a side that is odds-on favourites to finish bottom really does tell you the tale of the tape, to be honest. And Sam Walsh, again, had moments where he kicked that scrumptious goal, found a lot of the ball, but again, it's about being able to maintain that for 4 quarters. And Carlton were really looking for some real big moments from players. Disappointing performances all round, and stay tuned a bit later on. We're going to have a new segment called PommyInOz. We were going to see when we were going to reveal this, but it's where I maybe cut loose on different teams every week, and I can't see anyone beating Carlton. But you know what? Credit to the Tigers. I want to put that out there. I don't want to say that this is Carlton are bad. Tigers have got to get their due deserts. Let's talk about that. The key takeaways from this game. A young Richmond backline and their ability to really negate Harry. I thought Jacob Blight was immense in that first half before he went on with a groin tightness. What was really impressive about him, and I said this on the Tigers show, I thought this was the matchup for him, not Ben Miller, because he plays loose. He will run with you, and I thought he kept him on a tight leash. There was only one moment where Harry got off him, and I thought he limited his impacts, and he really did go everywhere with him. Harry couldn't find that space in forward 50. And I thought he really did set the tone. And then he was backed up by Broad and Vlastin and Traynor. I thought they were all incredible the way that they really didn't look to triple, quadruple team him. They looked to get in front of him and intercept, to spoil it, to bring it to ground, to be a transitional threat. Carlton were absolutely peppered, like 12 of them 13 goals coming from forward half mistakes. It just shows you how good Richmond's backline was. They knew with Carlton that if the ball hit the deck, spoil first, get it to ground, you can slingshot out of there. And the Blues really did suffer in this game. And, you know, credit to Richmond's backline. They did their homework. And unfortunately, the homework to beat Carlton doesn't require a doctorate degree as much as the football club would have you believe. Carlton's inability to handle pressure and self-destruct. This is something that we talked about against Saints, something that we briefly mentioned against GWS, that it was a good performance, but there was no intensity. And the Blues started strong, 41-point lead. And then as soon as it got a little bit hard, that ball movement started to get longer, Carlton crumbled like a poorly baked apple pie. Skill errors, missed targets, missing 2-metre handballs, not running with your man, not running against your man, not running with your player, not making options. The ball movement started to stagnate. The forward line patterns. It is a plague that plagues Carlton. And if Richmond can monopolise on it, what do you think a top team's going to do? And that's no offence to Richmond. There are teams that are well-versed in turnover football. Richmond are fledglings at this, even though it is part of their DNA. This is still new to them. And Carlton's inability to control when it's tough and just go, okay, let's do what Brisbane did against Sydney. And let's just go, Hawthorn did against Sydney, and let's just go goal for every 2 goals. Let them have their momentum. Let's compose ourselves a bit. And you see it, and it was almost instant in that second half. You saw Ollie do that short little kick. He burst 70 metres ahead of the ball. but then butchers the next kick because the kick that was back to him was 2 meters too forward, which then put him in pressure to run on. And it's what I keep saying to people. It's got to be perfect if you want to be a top 4 side. Near enough isn't good enough. And again, Carlton's inability to handle that shows you when it's not near enough, it's nowhere near the level in AFL. Richmond's emphasis on fundamental pressure. Uze and Broad said it was important to stick to their anchors, they called it, the fundamental aspects of their game plan, structure and pressure and sticking together. And their approach played dividends. Their ability to force Carlton into turnover by really flooding behind the ball and making Carlton have to be precise. And then when the ball hit the deck, getting there in numbers, putting your head over the ball, really showcased how Carlton can self-destruct. It was absolutely phenomenal from Richmond, and you've got to give them credit because everything was stacked against them, and once they eased into it, it was very, very easy for them. They looked like they were having fun out there. There is a young bloke who's playing his second year of football who's triple backflipped on you. That's how much fun they were having. And you know what? Credit to Richmond because you've got one coach saying that he hopes this becomes a regular thing. And you've got a first-year coach in Adam Uze who's been there less than 6 months saying, this is our anchor. This is what we expect. He said it with Sam Layla and Trainor's debut and Harry Armstrong. It's not a token game. They've applied these anchors in training, which they then imply in game. It's a concern, but Richmond will be very happy with that. And moving forward, that's going to protect them a lot in what will be a learning year. They're going to trouble teams that don't come with their A game. 4 is the ease in which Carlton imploded. Despite their early dominance, it was very easy. You know what's going to happen. Richmond's strategy of slowing it down, making Carlton have to kick. You saw the corridor become obsolete in the second quarter when it was their go-to place. You saw the long kicks. You saw the shallow entries. People will say Carlton had a lot of shots to goal, but only 30% of their inside 50s resulted in a shot a goal. A lot of them were token numbers. And this is the thing where a man like myself that loves stats, when you look at stats, you also need some narrative behind it. And at times these are token gestures. It's almost like your kid saying, I'm soz, as he breaks the 8th TV of the year. It eventually becomes meaningless without a pattern. And this is something that's plagued Carlton since the start of this rebuild. You look at it and the names may have changed and a lot of the players are staples of this now, but they still have that inability, that ability to self-implode. And now you're seeing it against Richmond. Carlton need a dynamic shift. And when momentum shifts in the game, the Blues look sitting ducks. They look vulnerable. And this is a big, 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 big issue for a team that is 6th oldest in the list. We're talking about boys now who are men. And Richmond unstuck them just through a want. And defending his pride, I keep saying it, it's in here. It's your character. It's not a skill, it's a character. And at the moment, the Blues can lose that quickly. And now it's soul-searching as Richmond triumph. Richmond get the tails wagging. They get to go now into games and say, we've got the dub. You knew the narrative was going to be. The narrative from uneducated morons has been, they won't win a game this year. Now they've got that off the bat. They're already ahead of the ledger. So they can now go into them games knowing they can do it and enjoy their football and enjoy this experience. And you know what? The DNA in Richmond is fascinating because you still saw it there, that pride, that willingness to pressure, that willingness to do the hard things, making sure the simple things are done. You make sure the ball is dead and run out of play, where you saw Wheater and Haynes faff about with it for Seth Campbell's goal. You see them little elements in the game with the Blues doesn't exist in Richmond. The core fundamentals of Richmond aren't comfortability. You've got to put your head over the pulpit if you want to be excellent. And the soul searching for the Blues begins because it all starts where we are. It all starts when we talk a good game. But in seriousness, I question this Blues outfit quite a bit because it looks good on paper, but it's the AFL Football League. It's Australian football, not Origami League. And it's all right saying that there's admirable efforts there, but the Blues, it's a bitter pill to swallow because I had them 3-3 round 6. I look wrong now. Carlton have got to do something, and that is the problem. The Blues rely on having to do something exceptional, but the basics are never taken care of. With all due respect to Richmond, this should have been a routine win. This is a handball 5 metres in space to your mate so he doesn't have to move. And it's because we can't do that, we rely on the exceptional. Harry McKay taking a mark on 4 players, Patrick Cripps having to beat 5 players in a contest. Very, very, very poor and very, very positive. This match was a stark reminder of the unpredictable nature of footy. Carlton are going to have to regroup. These mental lapses need to die, need to go quickly. They need to be ready to go at any moment. And for Richmond, they can take immense pride, immense confidence from this victory. Considering the youth and the odds stacked against them, they really did show that they're an exhilarating side. And you know what? A little bit of confidence, a little bit of togetherness can go a long way. Carlton have a mantra, stronger together. You know what? Richmond, they just are together. That's the difference. And that was a phenomenal performance. If you enjoyed the review, I'm a little bit disappointed. But please hit the like and subscribe button. I'll be back with PommyInOz a bit later where I am going to pick on Carlton a little bit. But you know what? Thank you very much for the lovely messages you've had. Hopefully, it's going to be a good season for both sides because both sides have once shown what they're capable of. One has a lot to learn. Peace, love, and light. I'm out.
Spent all my life holding all of it closely. I played it innocent, a feel of discontent. I'm finally facing it all, fearless.